Tonight, there is so much tension, it is absolutely sizzling. The heat is on. Hours from now, President Obama gives a critical speech about illegal immigration. Did President Obama get pushed into this speech? And what should he say? Karl Rove joins us live. Good evening, Karl. There are two things, Karl, is what he should say, I suppose, and what he will say would be the way you would look at it. So take it away. What should he say, and what do you expect that he will say?
Well, look, Greta, let me step back for just a minute. I'm an advocate of comprehensive immigration reform, but this is not the time to do it and not the way to do it. Think about it this way. President Obama, from January to January of last year to this year, did nothing to lay the groundwork for this. No meetings, no visits, no discussion whatsoever. In fact, a Republican senator who's at the heart of this issue told me that 10 months ago, he raised this issue to President Obama in a White House meeting and said, if you want to get this done, you need to be personally engaged and you need to begin to lay a foundation now. That was the last conversation he had with anybody in the White House. I talked to leadership aides in both the House and Senate Republican leadership staffs, and they say they've never had a conversation with the president about this or his people about it. So the administration has not laid the foundation for it. In fact, in January of this year, Greta, the president mentioned this in the State of the Union address. Out of 7,290 words, he devoted 38 to the issue of immigration reform. In fact, he said nothing else about it until March 19th. Faced with the loss of Representative Luis Gutierrez's vote on health care reform, and remember, he was scrambling to put it together. They won it by just a handful of votes. Congressman Gutierrez said, unless you're committed to immigration reform, I'm not voting for health care reform. So the president came out and said, I want to pass it at the earliest possible opportunity. Apparently that wasn't good enough because he came back a few days later and on the 21st said, I want to seek a bipartisan consensus this year. Then on the 28th of April, after he gets health care reform passed and doesn't need Luis Gutierrez's vote any longer, he says, well, you know what? I don't think there's any immediate appetite to take up the issue this year. But then he realizes by the 5th of May that this might be a good political issue, that while he can't get the bill passed this year, he could begin to lay the predicate among Latinos that he is their friend and Republicans are their enemy. So on the 5th of May, he says, I want to begin work this year. And then he steps it up, and apparently tomorrow will say, I want to pass the bill this year. Now, I got to tell you, this is cynical, and it is hypocritical, and it's political with an issue that oughtn't to be treated sincerely, honestly, and outside of politics as much as possible. I don't think the president's really interested in passing comprehensive immigration reform this year. He just wants a political issue to jazz up Latinos and to get them to vote, maybe not for Democrats this fall, but for him in 2012.